I thought I knew everything about my wife, until one text changed everything. It's punchy, dramatic, and immediately sparks curiosity while keeping the slow burn, emotional vibe. The day begins like any other, but in the narrator's mind, it feels extraordinary because of her. He watches her move through the kitchen with a kind of effortless grace that never fails to captivate him. She's humming softly, the kind of tune that's just hers, and the sound drifts lazily through the morning light. He notices the way her hair catches the sunlight, every strand glowing with warmth, and how her fingers wrap around her favorite mug, the one with tiny chip on the rim that somehow makes it perfect. There's a quiet comfort in these ordinary moments. He loves everything about her, not just the obvious beauty or her confident presence, but the subtle details, the crease of concentration in her brow when she reads a text, the way she pauses mid-step to tie her shoes, or the gentle sigh she lets out when she stretches. It's in these tiny things that he feels closest to her, as if he's discovering her all over again every day. He reaches out casually, brushing his hand against hers as she passes him, and the warmth of that touch lingers longer than expected. It's a touch that speaks of intimacy without words, a shared understanding that they belong to one another in these quiet, unspoken ways. He smiles inwardly, feeling a mix of admiration and gratitude. Her laugh, bright and slightly musical, fills the room as she recounts something trivial from the night before. He watches, mesmerized not just by her words but by the way she gestures, the subtle tilt of her head, the light in her eyes when she's genuinely amused. The narrator's heart beats a little faster as he thinks of how lucky he is. He reflects on the life they'd built together, the little routines, the shared glances across crowded rooms, the way their hands instinctively find each other even in silence. Even in the mundane, there's a rhythm, a pulse, a deep sense of belonging that feels almost sacred. As she moves to the counter to grab her morning coffee, he notices her fingers linger on the mug, and she looks at him with a fleeting smile that's both tender and playful. He feels a small jolt of warmth in his chest, a reminder that love isn't just grand gestures, but these quiet moments of connection. He wants to memorize the curve of her smile, the soft cadence of her voice, the gentle sway of her movements as she navigates the kitchen. In this part of the story, the audience should feel the narrator's profound appreciation for her, his subtle awe, and the gentle rhythm of a shared life. It's a scene filled with sensory details, warmth, touch, sound, and visual cues that draw viewers in and make them feel present in the space. The emotional goal here is to establish a deep, human connection, showing love not as perfection, but as an appreciation for every small, authentic detail. This is the calm before the tension, the foundation of trust and affection that makes the later conflict all the more impactful. By the end of this section, viewers should feel the narrator's sincere devotion and be emotionally invested in the story, eager to see what could possibly disrupt this seemingly perfect, tender moment. The day continues with the same quiet comfort, the kind that makes ordinary life feel almost magical. He sits beside her in the car, a routine errand turned shared moment, and watches her fingers move over her phone. She's texting, nothing unusual in itself, but something in the way she leans slightly forward, her eyebrows knitting ever so subtly, makes his chest tighten. It's not anger or fear, just a flutter of something new, a whisper of curiosity mixed with a faint unease. He notices the small details that previously might have gone unnoticed, the soft clatter of her fingernails against the phone screen, the slight bite of her lower lip as she types, the tilt of her head in concentration. There's a rhythm to her movements, a precision, almost like she's crafting something delicate and private. And for the first time that day, he feels a pang of uncertainty, the thought that there's a part of her he doesn't fully see, a secret tucked in her palm. The car hums along the road, the sunlight filtering through the windows and painting streaks of gold across her face. He wants to reach out, to casually rest his hand on hers, but something holds him back. There's hesitation in his fingertips, a question of whether he should interrupt this private moment. Yet, at the same time, a quiet tension coils in his chest. He's torn between respecting her space and the need to understand what he's sensing. He studies her expression, catching the smallest flicker of emotion, a shadow of worry, maybe excitement, but it's fleeting. It disappears before he can name it, leaving him more curious than before. In that instant, his mind begins to wander, imagining possibilities. He tells himself not to overthink, but the heart has a way of noticing things the mind can't ignore. To ground himself, he lets his hand brush hers lightly, an almost accidental touch, and feels the warmth of her skin. She glances at him, a soft, questioning smile appearing, and he senses the subtle reassurance that everything is normal, yet the air between them is charged. It's not confrontational, just intimate, a brush of reality that reminds him of how delicate human connections can be. The narrator's inner voice narrates this tension quietly, allowing viewers to feel the slow-burn curiosity that's creeping into an otherwise ordinary day. He's aware of the balance between trust and fear, admiration and anxiety. His eyes follow her movements, noticing how she occasionally pauses mid-text, her lips slightly pursed, her breathing almost imperceptibly quicker. The mundane act of texting becomes a window into unknown emotional terrain, and the audience is drawn into that suspense, wondering what she's thinking, what she might be hiding, or what surprise could be awaiting him. In this moment, the story relies on subtle cues, small gestures, fleeting glances, tiny shifts in body language, to create tension without conflict. The emotional goal is to make the audience feel the narrator's vulnerability, his hesitation, and the quiet, simmering intrigue of a life lived closely with someone you love, yet never completely predict. By the end of this section, viewers should feel the first hints of suspense, a gentle tug of what happens next. While still immersed in the warmth of their bond, setting the stage for confrontation, revelation, and emotional growth in the parts that follow. After that fleeting moment in the car, a quiet storm begins to stir inside him. He tries to focus on the road ahead, on the mundane errands they'd planned, but his mind keeps circling back to her. The way her fingers hovered over the screen, the brief crease in her brow, the almost imperceptible pause before she sent her message, all of it plays on repeat, teasing his thoughts. He loves her deeply, yet a strange unease begins to take root, subtle but insistent, like the first hint of rain before a storm. He glances at her out of the corner of his eye. Her expression is calm, serene, but his imagination begins to fill in the gaps. What was she writing? Who was it to? Could it be something important she hasn't shared with me? He feels a pang of guilt for thinking it, for allowing suspicion to creep into the space of trust they've built over the years. Still, the heart has a mind of its own, and his curiosity, laced with worry, won't be quieted. His hands tighten slightly on the steering wheel, not from anger, but from tension, from the quiet anxiety that comes when you feel slightly disconnected from someone you love. He wants to confront her immediately, to ask, but a voice inside urges patience. Not now. Wait. Observe. Understand first. He breathes slowly, trying to center himself, but the subtle flutter in his chest refuses to fade. To anchor himself, he lets his hand find hers casually, resting on the gear shift where their fingers brush. It's a touch that says, I'm here. I care. I'm trying to stay calm. She notices, her eyes flick up toward him, warm and slightly amused, and he feels a jolt of comfort mixed with longing. There's still trust between them, still the safety of their bond, but he's now aware that even in love, uncertainty can sneak in, quiet and delicate. The narrator begins to reflect on their life together, searching for context. He remembers the mornings like this, the soft hum of her voice, the subtle rhythm of their shared routines, the small touches that are their language of love. He reminds himself that love isn't just about certainty, it's also about faith in the other person's integrity. Yet the human heart, wired for connection and sometimes fear, refuses to let go entirely. As they continue driving, he notices the little things he's never focused on before, how her hair falls slightly into her face, how her eyelashes catch the sunlight, the soft sigh she lets out as she leans back in her seat. Each detail deepens the tension, not between them, but within him. He wants to understand, to feel secure, but he also doesn't want to disrupt her peace or betray the warmth of the moment. Internally, he wrestles with the duality of trust and doubt, admiration and fear. The audience is invited to experience this inner struggle intimately, feeling his hesitation, empathy, and longing. Every subtle glance, every brushed hand, every paused thought builds the emotional tension that keeps viewers engaged. By the end of this section, the stage is set, the narrator is caught between love and uncertainty, curiosity and patience, his emotions layered and rich. Viewers feel the slow burn suspense, a tension that isn't loud or dramatic, but deeply human, preparing them for the gentle confrontation and revelation that will follow in the next part. The tension that had been quietly simmering in his chest now reaches a delicate tipping point. He knows he cannot ignore the unease any longer, not because he suspects betrayal, but because he values honesty above all else. In the stillness of the car, he turns toward her slightly, careful not to intrude but wanting to bridge the subtle distance that has crept between them. His voice is soft, almost hesitant, yet carries a sincerity that can't be ignored. "I noticed you texting earlier. Is everything okay?" he asks, his words measured, free of accusation. It's a simple question, but in the space between them, it holds weight. He watches her reaction closely, aware that even the smallest gestures, a blink, a shift of her hand, the tilt of her head, can communicate more than words. She looks up at him, her eyes meeting his with calmness and a trace of surprise, and in that instant, he sees vulnerability there too. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to make his heart ache with tenderness. She doesn't need to defend herself, her presence alone conveys a quiet reassurance. Yet the air is charged, not with anger, but with anticipation. He notices the tiny details, how her fingers brush against the steering wheel, the soft way she exhales, the slight lean of her body toward him as if unconsciously seeking comfort. He mirrors her openness, shifting slightly closer, their knees almost touching, a silent gesture of connection. The warmth of proximity, of shared space, softens the edges of the tension that had been building inside him. There's a pause, a suspended moment where neither speaks, and the audience feels the weight of it. This is slow burn intimacy in its purest form, the unspoken acknowledgement of concern, the desire for understanding, and the deep emotional bond that allows one to confront another without fear of shattering trust. His hand brushes hers lightly, a grounding touch, a way of saying, "I'm here. I'm listening. I care." Finally, she speaks. Her voice is gentle, steady, and honest, carrying a note of relief as she explains. Perhaps it was a private message to a friend, a surprise she was planning for him, or an important update she hadn't yet shared. Whatever it is, it's human, relatable, and free of deception. His tension eases slightly with every word, replaced by admiration for her openness and the grace with which she handles the moment. He nods slowly, letting the silence speak for him. His gaze lingers on her, noticing how her eyelashes catch the sunlight, the subtle curve of her lips as she smiles faintly, the quiet beauty in her honesty. He feels a swell of emotion, relief, love, and a deeper appreciation for the woman who continues to surprise him, not in betrayal, but in her complexity and humanity. In this scene, the emotional goal is to model communication as an act of love. The audience should sense the depth of their bond, the way trust can be challenged without being broken, and how closeness can be reinforced through vulnerability. Subtle touches, glances, and body language are as important as dialogue. They convey warmth, reassurance, and the quiet electricity of a slow burn connection. By the end of this part, viewers feel a mixture of relief and admiration. The tension has peaked emotionally, but the intimacy and love between them have grown even stronger, paving the way for the revelation in the next segment and the full emotional resolution to come. The quiet in the car is different now, lighter, yet charged with expectation. He listens as she gathers her thoughts, her fingers resting gently on her lap instead of the phone, the subtle tension in her shoulders slowly easing. The sun casts a warm glow across her face, highlighting the softness in her eyes, and he notices a fleeting smile as she begins to speak. There's a sense that she's about to share something she's held close, and the weight of anticipation presses gently against his chest. She explains, her voice calm but layered with emotion, the purpose of her earlier texting revealed. Maybe it's a surprise she's planning for him, a small, meaningful gesture he hadn't expected, or perhaps it's a private worry she's been managing silently, not wanting to trouble him with stress she thought she could handle alone. Whatever it is, it's deeply human, tender, and profoundly revealing. He feels a rush of admiration for her, not just for the thought behind her actions, but for the quiet strength and grace with which she carries herself. As she talks, he notices the little gestures that speak louder than her words. Her fingers curl slightly around her mug when she glances down, a sign of her nervousness, and then unconsciously, she reaches out to let their hands meet. The warmth of her palm against his feels grounding, reassuring, and intimate. He feels the tension in his chest dissolve, replaced by a surge of relief and a renewed sense of closeness. The physical touch mirrors the emotional connection, subtle but powerful, YouTube-safe yet profoundly intimate. He studies her face carefully, the slight sparkle in her eyes as she shares a detail, the soft curve of her lips as she smiles shyly, the small crease at the corner of her eyes that he loves so much. Each detail deepens his sense of awe for her. He realizes that part of love is discovering the unseen sides of someone you think you know completely, and embracing them with patience, respect, and care. There's a brief pause when she finishes, a shared silence that's comfortable and warm. Neither needs to fill it with words, their proximity and lingering glances convey everything. He reaches over, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face, and the simple act communicates gratitude, understanding, and love. It's a quiet affirmation. He sees her fully, not just the actions that startled him, but the heart behind them. This is the emotional climax of the story. The uncertainty and tension that have been building now give way to revelation, understanding, and deepened intimacy. The audience feels both relief and admiration, experiencing the narrator's emotional journey as he processes surprise, confusion, and ultimately love. The scene balances internal reflection, sensory richness, and relational closeness, a hallmark of slow-burn romance storytelling. By the end of this segment, viewers should feel the narrator's heart expand with trust and admiration. The bond between them has strengthened, no longer shadowed by doubt. There's a shared warmth, a lingering electricity of connection, and a quiet celebration of understanding. The stage is now set for part 6, where they reflect on this newfound closeness and emotional resolution begins to bloom, preparing for the comforting, satisfying ending that will leave the audience emotionally fulfilled. The car ride has ended, but the warmth between them lingers, subtle yet profound. He notices how relaxed her posture is now, the tension that had lingered earlier replaced by a gentle ease. Their hands remain close, fingers occasionally brushing, small touches that feel electric in their simplicity. In this quiet aftermath, the narrator reflects on how delicate and resilient love can be, the way trust can bend under uncertainty but not break when nurtured with patience and openness. They step out into the soft glow of late afternoon, the sunlight diffused, golden against her hair and the lines of her face that he knows so well. The world feels slightly brighter, warmer, as if acknowledging the relief and intimacy that now fills the space between them. He subtly adjusts his pace to match hers, walking shoulder to shoulder, their movements synchronized without conscious effort. Even silence has a comforting rhythm now, no words are necessary to convey the renewed closeness. In his mind, he replays the earlier moments, the uncertainty, the hesitation, the fleeting worry, and contrasts them with this calm present. He realizes that love isn't about constant certainty, but about choosing connection even when the heart flutters with doubt. The gentle pressure of her hand against his is a reminder that intimacy is built not just through grand gestures but through everyday attentiveness, brushing her hair from her face, the warmth of shared proximity, the quiet exchange of glances that say, "I see you, and I'm here." They pause near a quiet park, the air filled with the soft scent of blooming flowers. She leans slightly into him as they watch the sunlight scatter across the trees. He reaches for her hand fully this time, intertwining fingers, feeling the subtle pulse of life and trust. His thumb brushes over hers in a slow, soothing motion, an act of reassurance and connection. She glances at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude, affection, and playfulness. The tension of the earlier hours has dissolved into a tangible warmth that radiates between them. They talk softly, words flowing easily now, shared stories, quiet laughter, and reflections on the day. In these exchanges, the narrator notices new layers of her character, subtle shades of vulnerability and humor that he hadn't fully appreciated before. Each revelation, each moment of eye contact, deepens the emotional intimacy. He feels a growing sense of security, not just in her presence, but in the understanding that their bond is strong enough to weather uncertainty. The story emphasizes that emotional resolution doesn't require dramatics or finality, it's in the lingering warmth of small touches, the silent acknowledgement of shared trust, and the gentle rhythm of togetherness. The audience should feel the depth of their connection, sensing the satisfaction that comes from overcoming doubt and reaffirming love. By the end of this part, the narrator and his wife walk together, physically and emotionally aligned. Their hands remain linked, their glances soft, their breaths synchronized with the calm world around them. Viewers are left with a sense of intimacy, relief, and satisfaction, ready for the final reflection in Part 7, a conclusion that leaves love secure, tender, and profoundly human. The evening falls gently around them, the world outside quieting into soft shadows and warm, amber light. Inside, their home feels cocooned in a tender intimacy, the kind that comes from shared trust, laughter, and small reconciliations. The narrator sits beside his wife on the couch, their shoulders touching lightly, a casual yet meaningful closeness that speaks of years of connection and understanding. He watches her as she sips her tea, the steam curling softly around her face, highlighting the gentle lines of her smile and the warmth in her eyes. He reflects on the day, tracing each moment in his mind, the flutter of worry in the car, the brief uncertainty, the revelation, and the soft, reassuring touches that followed. Each memory carries a lesson. Love is not just admiration, it is patience, it is seeing the unseen, listening to the unspoken, and choosing to remain close even when the heart hesitates. He feels a deep gratitude for the woman beside him, not just for her beauty or her confidence, but for her humanity, for the vulnerability and honesty she shares with him in moments both big and small. Their hands find each other again, fingers lacing naturally, a physical reassurance of connection. He can feel her pulse, steady now, mirroring his own calm. She leans slightly against him, a quiet gesture that speaks volumes, and he instinctively drapes an arm across her shoulders, drawing her closer. The contact is gentle, grounding, and deeply intimate, a YouTube-safe expression of closeness that feels loaded with love. They talk in low voices, reminiscing about small joys and shared memories, allowing laughter to rise like soft music between them. The sound is comforting, a reminder of all the ordinary moments that, together, have built the extraordinary bond they share. He notices how her eyes light up when she recounts a funny anecdote, and he laughs softly, captivated not just by the story but by the life and energy in her expression. As the night deepens, they move toward the window, watching the last streaks of sunlight fade from the sky. The world outside is calm, yet alive with possibilities, much like the bond they now share more fully. He reflects on the journey of the day, how a fleeting moment of uncertainty could have unsettled their peace, but instead became a catalyst for deeper understanding, trust, and love. The slow-burn tension has given way to a richer intimacy, one that is both emotional and physical in its quiet, unspoken resonance. In these final moments, the narrator realizes that love is not static. It grows, adapts, and strengthens when faced with subtle challenges. It is in the gentle brushing of fingers, the lingering glances, the soft smiles, and the unhurried acknowledgement of one another's presence. It is in choosing each other over doubt, in welcoming vulnerability, and in the profound satisfaction of emotional closeness. He rests his head near hers briefly, inhaling the familiar scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of her body pressed lightly against his. In that quiet intimacy, he knows, as the audience does, that their love has been reaffirmed. They are together, secure, and deeply connected. The day's tension has transformed into a lasting tenderness, leaving viewers with a heartwarming sense of resolution, emotional fulfillment, and the beauty of a bond strengthened by trust, honesty, and shared vulnerability. The story closes on this serene, reflective note: two people, hand in hand, hearts aligned, savoring the quiet power of love fully realized, leaving the audience emotionally satisfied and inspired by the depth of human connection.